Good morning, and thanks for having me. I'm Mike Zeto, Chief Commercial Officer at Boingo Wireless, and see a lot of friendly faces in the room. It was great to connect with some of you already this morning. Events like this are fantastic because we've got the right size crowd, the right size audience, and love to see that a lot of our partners are here, either on the construction side, the design side, or our partners at the MTA, Port Authority, and other agencies around the Northeast that we work with. So, look, we talked a lot about the Northeast Corridor so far today. I think what's fantastic is, I lived in Boston, I lived in New York, and have had the opportunity to travel back and forth between DC and Boston. And now you've got roughly, 50 million residents that are residing in that corridor. And the Northeast really is starting to lead the way in transportation infrastructure innovation. And that's what we'll talk about today. 5G and Wi-Fi, we're talking about connectivity. I'll talk about different types of connectivity. But 5G and Wi-Fi are really enabling transit hubs to really digitally transform their businesses and the passenger experience and their operations. And what you heard in the last couple of panels was really about digital transformation. So it's nice to follow that up. And, for those of you that don't know who we are, which I think most of you probably do. We started out providing Wi-Fi services in airports over 20 years ago. And now we design, build, and manage very complex converged networks. You'll hear me use the term convergence today a lot, and that should be one of your key takeaways. These transit hubs, the airports, the military bases, the stadiums that we operate in, we've truly become a partner. And so as we think about public-private partnerships and models, we're trying to help you really deliver on complex projects and provide wireless connectivity systems that make those projects state-of-the-art and allow you to provide applications and services that drive the outcomes that you're really seeking to drive. I think that's the third thing you'll hear me talk about today, outcomes. And that should be a takeaway as you think about some of these major projects. Over the last 20 years, we've really contributed, we feel, to some of the most significant projects, especially here in New York, that have taken place. And whether it's 18 stories underground or miles of tunnel under the water, indoor, outdoor venues that need connectivity, public safety systems that need to be in place, and again, the digital transformation of really helping to improve and modernize critical operations in the transit industry. We've been there. And, I mentioned our affinity to New York. We've got a new office over in Rock Center. We've been operating here for 20 years now. And we've got some major partnerships here in the region, and they're strong partnerships. I was talking to some of the folks from the MTA about some of the work that we're doing together. And I think one of the themes from the earlier panels was partnerships. It really takes partnerships to make all of these complex projects happen, and all of this digital transformation that we're trying to drive to improve that rider experience, the passenger experience, and then the operations and safety and timeliness of the services that you're trying to provide in your industry. And right here in New York, we're supporting the MTA, the Long Island Railroad, the Port Authority. We're connecting major transportation hubs like Grand Central Madison, Penn Station, Jamaica Station, Atlantic Terminal, JFK, LaGuardia. So really, working with all of the major players here in the city and in the region. And we also help connect one of the busiest transit cities in the world, London. We provide the wireless services at Heathrow. And we're the largest Wi-Fi provider to the Department of Defense, and we're providing Wi-Fi services on 90 military bases. So where that becomes important is when you talk about security. I haven't heard a lot of talk about cybersecurity, network security yet today. That's something that hopefully when we get to the end of the slides and talk a little bit more about some of the actions that you're all certainly thinking of, your IT departments and your consultants are helping you work through your cybersecurity policies and really putting programs into place that can be executed against. So, connected transit in action. I have a background in software, not necessarily connectivity. Then I worked my way into the wireless world through IoT, standing up a couple of smart city businesses for a large carrier, as well as public-private partnerships, and some FirstNet related IoT activities that we were doing at that carrier when it came to public safety and working with those agencies. And what I found is we did everything from the outside in as a carrier, right, as one of the telcos. Here you're starting to see the spaces now internally transform and become more connected. And so the way we're approaching this with our partners is really trying to change things from the inside out, right? And if you think about those spaces or the trains or the airports or the buses, they're becoming increasingly connected. So we want to review today some of the mega projects that we've recently executed on with our partners. And I mean, frankly, one of my favorites is Grand Central Madison. So I love this project because it truly was transformational and it was massive. And I came to Boingo 4 years ago as part of a team to do a take private and to really improve the group that we had and diversify the successful team that Boingo had. And we got dropped right into the middle of this project. And our team in New York is awesome. And the partnership with the MTA to make this happen was amazing. And now we're looking at what is the most transformative modernization of the Long Island Railroad service in over 100 years, and bringing riders directly to Manhattan's east side for the first time. And a couple of key stats which I thought were interesting in talking to Randy and a few others that I work with on a regular basis. When they began operation in 1834, there were like 37,000 people. And today you've got a population of nearly 3 million. And on top of that, this is now the busiest commuter railroad in North America. So really complex project that we worked on, and really great public-private partnership that we've developed. There's been billions invested to better serve the population and enhance transportation services in that area. And what was interesting about this was, and again, outcomes is the key to a lot of what I'm saying. It's not just about the connectivity and the technology. There were very, very defined outcomes that the MTA was trying to achieve by making this investment in connectivity solutions. And one was trains and train stations would have, basically offer riders faster cell coverage, faster Wi-Fi coverage, so that they can stay connected to work, school, and entertainment. And as we all know, COVID changed a lot of things. One of the things that changed was our propensity to want to stay connected wherever we were at. And so part of that rider experience really is leaning foundationally on how well you can keep people connected to what they want to be connected to get them to use the services more frequently and more consistently. The second was there was some use cases, some IoT applications. The networks needed to support cashless fare collection. So if you think about the efficiencies that drives and conductors using wireless ticketing machines to have a reliable and secure network connection and make it consistent throughout the journey. So not easy to accomplish, but a very key thing as one of the 5 outcomes that they were trying to drive as part of that investment. Onboard diagnostic equipment, so being able to use the network to transmit data in real time for health of trains, as well as timeliness of service, which was the 4th thing, so that they could provide it in the Long Island Railroad train time app, so that riders knew when to expect that train, and hopefully from the diagnostic information they were getting, we were keeping everything on track and on time, which is what riders come to expect. And then the 5th thing was thinking a little future forward, which a lot of public sector agencies frankly don't do, but are starting to now, again, post-COVID. And certainly us and the EYs of the world will always advise that you are thinking future forward about the next G, about the next generation of connectivity or use case or application that you want to drive. And it's really making sure that that network was built to be future forward and enable future innovation. So, in short, today, Grand Central Madison now and the Atlantic branch are really featuring a converged network that's neutral host that has all 3 carriers live across the entire system. So another real world example is, I know we don't have a lot of airport folks here today, but obviously we do a lot of work in airports. We have a very strong relationship with the Port Authority in New York and New Jersey. So we can't forget about the region's leading airports. So what I'll say here is we've long supported the airports here and airports around the globe, but JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, some of other terminals have went through significant renovations and certainly have tried to, from strategically, really enhance the experience that people have, whether that be touchless or whether it be connectivity. Everything is digital now in an airport. And LaGuardia Terminal B was recently named the world's best new airport terminal. So kudos to the PA, another great partnership there. And Newark debuted Terminal A this year, which I hope most of you have been through these terminals. That has been called both spacious and stunning, and it really is. And when Rick Cotton walks through those airports, I mean, that guy he's a great leader, but he is speed testing when he's going through those terminals because I get the notes. So, and they've all been good so far. So he's speed testing, he's going through. So, a lot of pressure on us to perform for our partners. These are mission critical type applications that are being run in both the airports and at the MTA. And, not only are we working with the airports, but we've got, we're working World Trade Center, Oculus, we've got a network deployed, we've got the pass stations in the Port of Newark. So stepping away from the region, I like this as an example because this was a very complex deployment. MTA, Grand Central Madison certainly was. The airports are not ever easy because you're working off hours, but downtown San Francisco's transit center, Salesforce Transit Center, is merging transportation systems and the urban experience together. And really, that's the core mission that they have, along with bringing together 11 separate transportation systems, which, as you can imagine, is extremely difficult and challenging. And their demands were really strong mobile connectivity across 1.5 million square feet, and it needed to be consistent, right? They wanted everybody's experience to be consistent. And whether it was mobile ticketing, retail purchases, emails, and downloading and streaming services, they were very focused on those use cases and those outcomes that they wanted to drive scores up around customer satisfaction of people that leverage that transit center. And then the last thing that was really, really important to them, which I'm sure it is to everybody in this room, is making sure you've got dependable cellular service for your first responders and public safety. And so they've got a dedicated network that we deployed successfully for them. That's a dedicated network for first responders and for public safety. And then lastly, but not least importantly nowadays, is the aesthetics of deploying a network and antennas and things to that nature. Gensler recently put out a study that talks about cleanliness and aesthetics in transportation hubs and transit hubs. And so, again, very important. We do a lot to work with our partners to make sure that there's proper stealthing. And, that gets a little on the nerdy side of connectivity when you're talking about RF and antennas. But it's really important that the design fits the space, right? So now I'm going to segue a little bit into my past life, but again, where I think the world is going from a digital transformation perspective in transit hubs. You have a Grand Central Madison, the impact of next generation wireless, whether it be 5G, and I'm old enough to have been through all the Gs, and Wi-Fi, with Wi-Fi 6 now and Wi-Fi 7, which will perform very much like 5G. And we're talking about 6G already, if you can believe it. So everybody's probably sick about hearing about 5G. You haven't heard much about Wi-Fi 6 because people don't usually say Wi-Fi 6, they just say Wi-Fi. And now you're going to start to hear about Wi-Fi 7 and 6G. So it's just not going to stop. It's going to be an onslaught. The smart city model is really starting to, as I said, bleed into the indoor environment and into the built environment. We heard a little bit about the built environment this morning. And a prime example is really airports. So airport and transit hub modernization right now is at an all-time high. And throughout that redevelopment process, you're starting to see more and more connected technology need to be deployed. So the need for connectivity continues to increase. And I think if many of you are like me, you don't really care how something's connected. You don't care how your car is connected. You don't care how your phone is connected. You just know it needs to be connected. You walk off the plane, you walk into Penn Station, you just know it needs to work. You're on the train going to work, you just know you need to have service. Could be Wi-Fi, could be cellular, you don't care, you just need to be able to do what you need to do. So that's when we talked about converged networks, and these initiatives now that are coming in building are more driven towards security, sustainability, and of course, accessibility, right? And we're truly looking at this from the inside out. And There's ROIs associated with all of these. So as you're building out your business cases around the outcomes you want to drive and looking to get funding and create those public-private partnerships and work with partners like us, there are defined ROIs around basically everything now. So we can get the data and we can determine what an ROI may be. In an airport example, I think one good one is you basically have, if you can save a minute between each flight that it's on the ground and save a minute, you can generate about another $10 million in income, right, for the airport. So you can do that when you've got things connected and everything is starting to become more and more automated. Our partners are really focused on the rider experience. I'm sure most of you here have teams dedicated to the rider experience. And, many of you, it's probably your number one objective, right? And so the end user experience and those connected use cases really have to drive outcomes. And that's how to enhance the rider experience. And we're actually designing the network almost backwards. We're taking the outcomes that you want to drive, and then we're going to design the network. There are companies out there in our space that will write a big check and then just design the network however they want to design it without really taking the outcomes into account or what the carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, really need their consumers to have from a performance perspective. So that's not a good thing either. So getting a little bit more technical, but not too much, right? We talked about silos. And businesses in general are siloed from a department perspective. The public sector over the years has been maybe a little bit worse than the private sector. It's a little challenging sometimes to break down the silos and get everybody to agree on initiatives. But the good news is I'm starting to see more and more collaboration amongst departments and units within transit agencies. And I think that's awesome because I really think you're leading the way in collaborating internally, which allows us to create that converged network experience to drive all those outcomes because it's easier for us to identify and rank what outcomes are really important to the agency. And this is where we're converging all the networks together. And again, you don't care how it's connected, an IoT device, towers, rooftop rights, giving you macro coverage, 5G, what will be 6G, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 5, LoRa, LTE, none of that matters. We're just providing you an experience based on outcomes, and it's a converged network, and really one entity to manage that, design that, build that, and manage it for you going forward as your public-private partner. I got 2 more slides, and then we'll wrap it up. The RFP and funding process, I get a lot of questions on that. It's very nuanced, as you all know, very specific to each project. And I'm really asked often how to go from a plan to a successful project getting executed and meeting the outcomes that you're trying to drive. Public-private partnerships are a big part of it, but here's a checklist to start to map some things out. You can take pictures of this. We also have a transportation ebook that there'll be a QR code at the end of the deck, and we have out at our table. But here's a checklist to start mapping out your connected transit goals. And start with the use cases, whether it's digital signage or mobile ticketing. Seek the advice of a trusted expert, like a Boingo or one of the few others that are credible in our space. Seek the advice of those experts and talk about the technology approach you may want to take, get their feedback, then get some design recommendations, and then with our public-private partnerships, we're introducing innovation to them all the time. We've deployed all different types of technologies that give our partners a new way to generate revenue or a new way to develop a security methodology and increase ridership. Digital infrastructure needs to be secured. We talked about cyber. It's paramount. We've got a lot of experience, as I said, and probably are the industry leader when it comes to security because of the work we do with the federal government and with the DoD. We're the largest Wi-Fi provider for them, as I said, and it's our highest priority. So we have a layered approach to this. You see the layers up there. These are layers that you can take, again, a photo of this slide. You can implement them internally. And again, the cybersecurity platform and it being layered allows for more structure and less risk. And then the key takeaways for today, I'll sum them up a little differently than the slide does, but I mean, you're really in the midst of digital transformation as an industry. Connectivity is the cornerstone to it. It's key. It's the thing that's weaved through every single use case and application that you're deploying or spending money on. And think about the outcomes. So with that being said, I think my time is up, and I'm going to click to this. Can I go back? Well, there you go. You can take a photo of that. My contact info is there. I'll be around to have one-on-one discussions for the rest of the day. My team's here as well, and we have a table out there. So thank you all for your time. Enjoy the rest of the session, and I'll be back up here for a panel.